Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Scotland at 7. It's the 10th of December. Joining me in the studio this evening is Chris McCusker from the SNP Socialist Group. Welcome back, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, I'm grand, Gordon. A wee bit of man flu, but I'll survive.
All right, well, we'll go gently on you, Chris. Okay, well, let's kick the show off as usual with the coronavirus update. As of 2 o'clock today, a total of 1,245,059 people in Scotland have now been tested through NHS Scotland labs and UK government regional testing centres. Of these, 1,141,754 were confirmed negative. 103,305 were positive. There are 933 new cases of COVID-19, and there were 50 new reported deaths of people who have tested positive today. This will be an underestimate of the number of cases. Not everyone with the virus will display symptoms, and not all those with symptoms will be tested. Of the people who have tested positive, 984 were in hospital last night, 52 of whom were in intensive care. The number of patients in Scotland who've died from complications caused by coronavirus COVID-19 infections now stands at 4,039. This number only includes those who have died in hospital, having received a positive test for the virus. The latest UK daily figures published today show that 63,082 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, an increase of 516 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings and not just hospitals. And just a little addendum to today's coronavirus update, and that is another update on common travel area restrictions. A ban on travel to and from Jersey is being introduced following a significant increase in the number of positive cases of coronavirus COVID-19. The ban will take effect from 6 p.m. on Friday, the 11th of December, alongside the lifting of travel restrictions to and from the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland is now seeing lower numbers of COVID-19 cases, although infection rates in the northwestern county of Donegal remain high and people should not travel there. The changes being made by regulations laid in the Scottish Parliament today, Thursday, which confirm that travel restrictions remain in place between Scotland and England, Northern Ireland and Wales. The continued ban on travel to the other three parts of the UK, except for essential reasons, follows this week's review, which found the prevalence of the virus continues to be higher than in Scotland, and importation risks remain high. Now, if you'd like to join our conversation here this evening, you can do so on Twitter by following us at BroadcastScot and using the hashtag Scotland@7. And now to tonight's main stories. And responding to the latest Brexit developments, the SNP Brexit spokesperson, Dr. Philippa Whitford MP, has said that the UK government's intention to impose an extreme Brexit in the middle of a pandemic is reckless, but to run down the clock with just weeks to go before the end of the transition period is the height of irresponsibility. She went on to say that warnings of disruption in food and medical supplies, chaos and delays at the border, and businesses left in the dark over trading terms from January the 1st, the Tories' Brexit brinkmanship is inflicting serious and lasting harm at the worst time possible. While businesses are already having to deal with the fallout from the coronavirus pandemic, many are sounding the alarm over being unprepared due to lack of clarity from the UK government. Recent research from the Institute of Directors found that those affected by Brexit, around 3/4 of firms stated that they weren't fully prepared. Dr. Whitford said, "It's a dereliction of duty that businesses and our vital sectors face disruption, delays, disaster in the new year due to Brexit. The reality is, at this late stage, we face a low deal or a no deal, with either outcome stripping away rights, holding back our economic recovery, costing jobs, and hitting people's livelihoods. Brexit has already taken £4 billion out of Scotland's economy, and the Scottish Government modelling of a low deal estimates that our GDP would be 6.1% lower by 2030 compared with continued EU membership, the equivalent of £1,600 per person in Scotland. Plans to impose an extreme Tory Brexit, which Scotland did not vote for, puts beyond doubt that Westminster is not acting in Scotland's interests. The only way to properly protect our interests is to become an independent country with our place in the EU." Well, Chris, no surprise there that Dr. Whitford is putting this out now, with just a few days left now for the Brexit negotiations. We're looking forward to a pretty chaotic and catastrophic Christmas, aren't we?
And a happy New Year to you as well. It's you know what we expected all along. What the SNP had been highlighting, way back since 2016, and since Philippa has been uh, made the Brexit spokesperson in Westminster. She has been on this from the get go, and I mean, she's absolutely right. I completely concur with everything that Philippa says. As the result of a lack of clarity in leadership, a lack of willingness to get any kind of deal that was once promised. And even the deal that was promised, I don't actually think that they were chasing to begin with.
Yep.
I famously said that I fully expected them to go for no deal rather than a deal. Because a no deal suited them a lot better than any kind of deal that they would get from the EU. And such is their, how can we say, insular look towards the EU. The no deal would, no doubt be more preferable to the Brexiteers.
Chris, can I ask you, how do you think the non-election of Donald Trump, his re-election, the failure to be re-elected, has affected Mr. Johnson's position now? Do you think it's made a difference to what he now has to do in these negotiations?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, Boris Johnson was always going to plough on and appease the Brexiteers that are keeping him in office. Because if he hadn't pandered to their whims, then I think there would have been calls for his tenure to be ended sooner rather than later. You only need to look back at the debacles that have happened within the government. If that happened to any other prime minister, I think he would have been out of office sooner rather than later. So I think because he's pandering to the Brexiteers, who form the ERG group, then in their eyes he can do no wrong. So I don't really think that Trump's a great factor in it. Because even if you take into consideration what Biden's been saying about the fact of the Northern Ireland border and stuff like that. I even think that Biden will, still look at the border in Northern Ireland and say that it's not good enough. And we should point out.
Well, I was going to say, Chris, despite the fact that we have been hearing that some progress has been made in a separate negotiation between the EU and the British government over the fact that they're fairly happy that there is not going to be a border in Northern Ireland. How much store do you think we can put in these comments?
Absolutely none whatsoever, Gordon, because you and I know that that is simply not going to be the case. They can dress it up as much as they like, but by the end of the day, there are still going to be border checks at the border of Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. That is just it. End of story. And whether they are, as they say in inverted commas, light border checks or heavy border checks, I really don't give a stuff. What has actually happened is the fact that the UK have done the bare minimum in order to appease the EU with regards to the border in Northern Ireland, so that they're not abandoning the Good Friday Agreement, but in doing so, have actually marginalised Scotland.
Yeah.
Because we voted to remain just the exact same as Northern Ireland, and there's one deal for one, but not one deal for the other. And it's all because the Tories will tell you it's because the Northern Ireland is in the unique position where it shares a land border with the EU. Right. Well,
Yeah.
To be fair, whether it's land or whether it's sea, it makes no difference. We border Denmark. We border, do you know what I mean? So,
all right.
No matter how they dress it up, it's going to be a bad deal.
Okay, Chris, listen, I have to draw a line under that for the moment and move to our next story now, which is also related to Brexit. The Tory government has overturned the Lord's internal market bill amendments as the EU plans for a no deal. The SNP has condemned the Tory government for rolling back on amendments to protect devolution and railroading ahead with its power grab Brexit bill, leaving the Westminster government utterly isolated. The House of Lords yesterday inflicted another round of defeats on the UK government over its attempts to take a wrecking ball to the devolution settlement. The bill enables Westminster to potentially bypass the devolved governments, spend on devolved areas and force them to accept standards set by Westminster in devolved policy areas like public health measures, the environment and food safety. However, in the House of Commons today, Boris Johnson's Tory government overturned the amendments and reinserted the power grab clauses back into the internal market bill, despite the Welsh and the Scottish Scottish Parliaments voting to refuse granting consent to the internal market bill yesterday. Meanwhile, following last night's meeting over dinner between Boris Johnson and Ursula von der Leyen, the EU has laid out contingency plans for a no-deal Brexit at the end of the year to minimise disruption to air traffic and to road and rail travel after the talks between the British and EU leaders failed to break an impasse. The European Commission also proposed that Britain and the EU to continue to offer reciprocal access to their fishing waters for up to a year, but London quickly rebuffed the idea. The agreement on fishing rights has been one of the most emotive sticking points in the negotiations for a trade deal. Investment banks today cut the chances of an agreement by December the 31st deadline, and bookmakers slashed the odds to 50%. Well, hardly surprising, I think, Chris, that the bookmakers have been slashing the odds on a Brexit deal. But the European Union appears to be desperately trying to make it as easy as possible for Boris Johnson to get, if not a trade deal, at least to smooth the rough patches and to try and help traffic move through the borders. Why is Mr. Johnson holding out and not accepting this, do you think?
Well, again, this story just backs up exactly what I was saying about the ERG group, and insofar as they don't want any ties with Europe as much as they can. This just furthers the narrative that was driven by the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage, that Britain wants its sovereignty back, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. And in doing so, they are going to be their own. They are going to be their own island. They are going to be independent, which is really a contradiction in terms, given the fact that that Scotland has been arguing for its independence for the last 300 years, we seem to be hitting our heads against a brick wall in that regard. But because everything in Whitehall has been geared towards this deal that this famous deal that they were going to do with Boris Trump, with Donald Trump. It's easy to confuse that.
Easy to get the two mixed up. Yes,
Trump and Donald Johnson. It's very easy to confuse the two of them. It's Tweedledum and Tweedledee, to be honest with you. But they haven't done the necessary preparations for anything apart from that US trade deal. They have pinned everything on, to the mast on that US trade deal, and there is no contingency plan for no deal. There is no contingency plan for what is going to happen after January the 1st. Nobody's any the wiser. You're getting headlines out. I tweeted a headline out from The Guardian today, and it was basically saying that the EU are warning that they could halt UK nationals from going on holiday
Well,
to
we'll be
mainland
talking
Spain.
about that just in a few minutes, Chris.
Yeah, so and they haven't put this in. I mean, even Alison Thewlis asked Boris Johnson at PMQs exactly how many border staff they have recruited with
Uh-huh.
the money that they have set aside for Brexit, and he couldn't even answer that
There was
because they
a,
haven't
yeah.
recruited any extra border staff.
I think they reckoned there would need, was it 50,000 more staff, something like that? Because I heard
50,000, and neither Boris Johnson nor any one of his ministers were prepared to put an actual figure on how many they've managed to recruit. And they have not recruited anybody. Now, from my point of view, from if I'm allowed to put my Eastwood refugee hat on, I want to know what's going to happen to me when I go down to Dover after January, because hopefully restrictions will be relaxed by then that I can travel, and I want to know how I'm going to be treated with a van load full of warm clothing for refugees. Exactly how I'm going to be treated when I get there.
that's an interesting point, Chris. Many constitutional experts have been saying that for Boris Johnson to strike a trade deal, it's always necessary for a country which is trying to do a trade deal to cede a little bit of its sovereignty so that it's obeying the rules of the deal that it's trying to negotiate. And for Boris Johnson to go into this with all these red lines saying that they wanted their full sovereignty, surely that it just doesn't fit. It can't be worked. There's no way to square that circle, is there?
No, there is absolutely no way. Again, talking directly about trade deals, it is a pass off. There has to be a certain limit of give and take, and one has to concede something before the other one gets something, and that's similar on both sides. And because the UK government are not willing to, shall we say, bend the knee in any such way, shape, or form towards the EU, because if they do, then that won't go down well with the ERG, the Brexit Party, the whole Brexit narrative. Then that's why Boris has taken such a hard line. And as I say, I maintain back as early as last year when they said that no deal is preferable to a bad deal.
Yeah.
Well, that just tells you everything that you need to know, Gordon. Do you know what I mean? That
Well,
they were always contemplating no deal.
Well, the thing is, Chris, as you say, you've kind of crystallised this down to the fact that we now have a Hobson's choice, haven't we, between a poor deal, a bad deal, as you would call it, and no deal. And if Boris is saying that he'd rather take a no deal than a bad deal, well, that kind of points the way ahead, though, doesn't it?
Well, you see, the thing is, though, is the fact that in that no deal, Boris thinks that, the no deal equates to a Canada-style deal.
Which
But,
is
well,
no deal.
yeah. But I'm sorry, Boris Johnson. Britain is not Canada. It simply just isn't it. The no deal that was set up with Canada was still a deal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Canada has got trading rights along with the EU. As it currently stands at this moment in time, we've got sweet FA trading rights along with the EU. We've not even begun to talk about fishing and all the rest of it. There is wild talk that there's problems with European arrest warrant. There could be problems further down the line with cross-border cooperation with regard to police, Interpol, security, and the narrative that is coming out on the news feeds at the moment is basically saying, with regards the continuation of medical supplies, they're willing to bypass the ports because they know that the ports are going to be choked. And everything is going to be air freighted in.
That's going to be very expensive.
Well, A, it's going to be more expensive. But B, if we quite rightly remember, Gordon, right, and I'm speaking from some authority here, but they've just dispensed with about 355 airport jobs within the last month. There are no ramp agents available to bring those bloody planes in. There are no ramp agents available to offload those planes. There are no people that are trained, how to use a low loader with health and safety in order to get that stuff off.
All right, Chris, I think you've made your feelings very plain there. It's good to hear information from the coalface, as it were. Anyway, we need to move on, unfortunately. And I said to Chris a moment ago, we're going to be talking about holidays in the European Union. And UK citizens may need visas for stays in the European Union longer than 3 months after Brexit from January the 1st, French European Affairs Junior Minister Clement Beaune said today. Mr. Beaune said that the matter was still being negotiated. For stays of more than 3 months, there may be visa applications, professional or other, and this is a point that is still under discussion, Beaune told reporters. Whatever happens on January the 1st, we will be in a different universe. We are already, Beaune added. Beaune visited the Gare du Nord train station and the terminal of Eurostar in Paris to check on the new border control facilities ahead of Britain's full exit from the European Union. So here we are, Chris, what you were just talking about. British citizens planning to travel into the European Union, if they are planning to stay there, perhaps at a holiday villa or something like that, for more than 3 months, will now need a visa. And these are probably the very same people who perhaps voted for Brexit.
It's very possible that they did, Gordon, and it's my dearly departed mother and father always told me never to mock the afflicted. But people that honestly, they just did not know. This is the epitome of the fact that people did not know what they were voting for. And you cannot say any plainer than that, because it is exactly that. There are people who have got second houses, definitely not socialists, that's for sure. But you people that have got second houses in France and Spain, Italy, Germany.
Spend the winter there, yeah.
And well, yeah, I mean, basically, they go out for about 6 months at a time, maybe even 8 months at a time, and then come back here during the summer. And they're going to be forced with the harsh reality of the fact that individual country has now got the right to say to them, you either take up our citizenship or you get the flock out of Dodge.
We'll have a visa.
That is exactly what. Well, yeah, but even that. Yeah, but even just that fact of you have to have a visa for anything more than 90 days.
Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to the thing with the refugees, if you don't mind, because we know that we have to obtain a driving permit for when we actually roll off the ferry in France. If we're able to do so.
Yep.
But if we were to go and help our partners at the Belgian kitchen, we would need to have a separate driving licence in order to get into Belgium.
So it's going to get very complicated for people who are trying to help refugees, never mind go on holiday.
Yeah, but I mean, you think of the amount of people who I actually know. One of my friends who happens to help us on Eastwood Refugee, Colin Skinner, he actually, every summer, he drives from Scotland to Spain. Right. He prefers to take his own car. And it's a massive big, it's a military operation, but but he will then potentially have to get 3 different permits. 4, because he'll go through France, down into Portugal, and then into Spain.
Yeah, so very complicated. But as you said earlier, Chris, I mean, people who have second homes on the continent are a bit like turkeys voting for Christmas, aren't they, if you pardon the expression?
Well, yeah, and and that's why I say, I mean, it's not nice to mock the afflicted, but you can't help stand back and say, well, we told you so.
Yeah.
And it very much is a case of that, Gordon.
Okay, Chris, thanks very much for that. Let's move on now. And Alison Thewlis has called on the UK government to introduce a £98 billion fiscal stimulus package to help kickstart the economy. The SNP have said that the Tory government must introduce a £98 billion fiscal stimulus package and devolve financial powers to Scotland to kickstart the economy, after figures revealed that the UK economy grew by just 0.4% in October as the recovery continued to slow. The Office for National Statistics has today released new figures that show that the economy remains fragile, with unemployment continuing to surge. The Confederation of British Industry has also warned that the economic impact of the pandemic, coupled with that of Brexit, will see the economy unlikely to return to pre-COVID levels until the end of 2022, with unemployment set to rise to 2.51 million, 7.3% of the workforce, in the second quarter of next year. The SNP Shadow Chancellor said that the Tories must deliver a major investment package to protect public services and to put money into people's pockets and to mitigate the damage of Brexit, which has already taken £4 billion out of Scotland's economy. Now, Chris, this is obviously a good idea to inject money into the economy at the point where people really need it. Is there any chance at all, do you think, with the British government doing this, though?
No, none whatsoever. It's a valiant attempt from Alison to try and cajole the UK government into releasing some liquidity, to try and kickstart the economy in Scotland. But they're never going to pay Scotland any heed over the southeast of England. And as I say, it's a valiant effort, but really, what I don't need to tell you, Gordon, but really, what Scotland needs to do is to start in earnest highlighting the inequality and the duplicity of the UK government, and we need to start and get campaigning for independence as soon as possible, and that starts obviously in May. To return a majority of SNP MSPs to Holyrood so that we can confidently turn around to the UK government and say, that we've got our majority and Scotland wishes to go its separate ways.
So you think, Chris, that this really is just adding more fuel to the fire now for people to move from, many no voters who may have been sort of swithering over this, maybe now beginning to see just how badly things are going to go with Brexit. And hopefully they will start to turn back towards independence now as a far better option.
Unfortunately, Gordon, there is no truer saying in that, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. We can highlight everything that is wrong within this unholy union that we are being held hostage in. But like it or not, when you point out the harshest of realities, there are some people out there, and we have to accept this, that just will not accept the harsh realities, and they would much rather go down with the ship or die in the ditch along with their prime minister than anything else, rather than actually concede the fact that they were wrong. And it's not a matter of us saying you're wrong and we're right. It's a matter of us basically, again, coherently pointing out what is wrong with this union in the first place, why it doesn't work for Scotland, and how Scotland could do so much better, out with the UK union and being in a partnership of equals within Europe, where everybody has got a desk at the table and also a voice at that table as well. You only need to look at how the Republic of Ireland have been managing since they took their seats within the European Parliament to know that it's definitely going to work for Scotland. It's an absolute no-brainer.
Okay, well, listen, thank you very much for that, Chris. We're going to move on to the next story now. And the UK government will cut benefits for NHS and social care workers in receipt of the Scottish Government's £500 thank you payment. The SNP has called for a U-turn on Tory plans to cut the benefits for NHS and social care workers in receipt of the Scottish Government's £500 thank you payment. In answer to a written parliamentary question, the Tory Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for Welfare Delivery, Will Quince MP, admitted that the UK government plans to reduce benefit payments for health and care workers receiving the thank you payment, which could see workers lose out on hundreds of pounds as a result of the Department of Work and Pensions clawing the money back from claimants. For universal credit, the Tory government deducts 63 pence of benefit payments for every pound of earnings for claimants. While those on working tax credits and legacy benefits, the deductions are different and can be even higher. The SNP Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Neil Gray MP called on the Tory government to make a U-turn on the decision to impose benefit, tax and national insurance deductions so that all health and social care workers receive the thank you payment in full. Now, this strikes me, Chris, of the UK government playing politics with people's livelihoods again. What was your reaction to hearing this news today?
Well, I mean, this actually just leads into what I was talking about, Gordon. It just once again wonderfully illustrates the inequality and the despotic regime that we are currently living under. Our First Minister realises that the health workers have done an outstanding job during COVID, and she wants to reward them with a one-off payment. And the UK government want to tax them for that one-off payment. And what is actually being reported, which has still not been confirmed yet, but the actual NHS staff could lose up to 75% of the COVID bonus.
Chris, sorry to interrupt you, Chris. Something just occurred to me that I know in certain circumstances, if you give a gift to somebody, then it's not taxable income. I wondered if the Scottish Government could change the way in which this offer is being made so that no tax has to be paid on it at all.
They would have to do that, yeah, because the two bonus payments that I get as a carer are that is non-tax deductible, and it also doesn't affect my benefits that I get from the UK, which is 86 pence an hour.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what care worker. That's what unpaid carers get from the UK government, 86 pence an hour for looking after my elder brother for 39 hours a week. And sometimes it's actually more than 39 hours. But the other thing, is that if obviously Scotland was in charge of its own fiscal autonomy, we wouldn't be having this discussion, and Scotland would be able to do what it wants, if it was in charge of its own tax raising revenue. And again, it is the UK government playing politics, but by the same token, it is also the fact that, people on the no side can see exactly and transparently the fact that the UK government are taking money out of the mouths of people who are working day in and day out in order to help us respond on the pandemic. And this, again, needs to be highlighted to people who did vote no. Even the most ardent of no voters, would have to have a heart of stone not to realise the fact that these people potentially could get 75% of that £500 taken off them.
It's terrible, isn't it, Chris? I mean, the people who might be saving their lives one day, and they're accepting that it's okay for the London government to take back money which has been given as a reward for all their hard work.
Well, yeah, it's honestly incredible. I've seen someone pass me a picture of a Ukrainian family the other day there, and it was Ma, Pa, and three Waynes, and stuff like that. And the Wayne on the right-hand side in a yellow T-shirt was only about 10, but he went on to actually help develop the COVID vaccine.
That's
And
amazing.
in this country.
It's amazing.
They were
Thanks very much. You're always
and
full of great anecdotes, Chris. Always nice to have some real
you have
life
to,
heroes.
in this day and age, Gordon, and you'll know this as well as I do. You know what I mean? Because you do some fantastic work on your own. You know, with the whole IndyCar thing, but you have to be your own media now. You
True,
cannot rely on. You cannot be just getting force-fed media through you know the right-wing lens that is run by the UK, because you will never be in control of the full facts.
yeah.
You know, and sources like Broadcasting Scotland, sources like the Ferret, sources like you know the National and stuff like that. You know, there is news media out there for people to actually inform themselves, rather than just have this, you know, corn-fed news media that has been, you know, that has been basically purported by the Tory party as gospel.
Yeah.
And you know, 9 times out of 10, it is not gospel.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your compliments as well. We're going to move on now and cross the Atlantic to the United States, where the daily US COVID deaths have hit a new record today. The United States daily death toll from COVID-19 has surpassed 3,000 for the first time, prompting pleas for Americans to scale back Christmas plans, even with vaccines, on the cusp of winning regulatory approval. COVID-19 deaths reached 3,253 yesterday, pushing up the UK total since the start of the pandemic to 289,740 people, with a record of 106,219 people hospitalised with the highly infectious respiratory disease. Healthcare professionals and support staff, exhausted by the demands of the pandemic, have been watching patients die alone as millions of Americans refuse to follow medical advice to wear masks and to avoid crowds in order to contain the spread. The one-day death toll exceeded the number of lives lost from the attacks of September the 11th in 2001. Now, that's an incredible statement to be coming out today, Chris, that the daily death toll is now higher than the death toll from 9/11.
Yeah, it's you know, putting it in that context, it's absolutely horrendous, Gordon. It really is. And I know the First Minister paid consideration today with the total of deaths in Scotland amount just passing 4,000. And what you have to put into context here is the fact that this is a global pandemic. It's not, you know, just solely, you know, in the UK. It's not solely in Europe and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
People around the world are suffering, you know, and because of a certain administration's actions, you know, the death figures are higher than what they should be, and that's something that you know is obviously you know beyond.
Chris, I was going to ask you, the death toll in America is very high, and I mentioned there in the report that people in America are refusing to wear masks and to keep social distancing. What is going on? Why are the American public so reluctant to obey the rules? What's the problem?
Well, again, honestly, I don't know who scripted tonight's program, Gordon, but it's you know, it's definitely going my way. It's
Okay.
going back to what you know, my last socialist rant about the right-wing media, and what you've got over there is that you've got a media controlled by Murdoch, which is you know basically purporting everything is pro-Trump.
Yeah.
And you know, and if Trump
Conspiracy
says,
theories.
yeah, well, it's not conspiracy theories in so many words, but it's basically saying it is championing the Trump narrative, and if Trump is saying, you know, you know, have a pint of bleach and you'll be fine, they'll print it.
Yeah.
And and if he says don't wear a mask,
but
then they will say you don't have to wear a mask.
Chris,
And it's as simple.
I was just
So
going to ask you, Chris, is this something cultural? Because many Americans are being told in their own media by certain sections of their own media that this is an infringement of their human rights under their constitution, and they can't be forced to wear a mask, they can't be forced to socially distance. Is that what's behind this?
you have got that element because it is within their human rights. You know, it's in one of their amendments that you know they have the right to bear arms and stuff like that. But there are several states have rolled back from that. You know, it's not every state you're allowed to walk about with a gun.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. You know, so there are certain regulations that have to be adhered to. Again, the going back to the right wing media, and this is not just you know America. We're talking about. It happens in Britain as well. It happens to a certain extent in Australia. It happens, you know, to a certain extent in Russia as well, and it's all driven by you know people like Murdoch. You've got people like Toby Young and all the rest of it. You've got
Chris, there's one other thing that puzzles me, Chris. If the media moguls, the right wing media, as you characterise them, are putting these stories about that people should not wear masks, it's an infringement of their civil liberties. Why are they telling people that? What is it they're trying to achieve? Are they wanting more people to die from the disease? I can't understand what the motivation would be for this. Because any thoughts on that?
These are the people that believe in herd immunity. They're also the very same people that actually believe in the whole eugenics program. You know, as you know, for the greater good, shall we say? But you know, they are the most decisive people in the world, and you know, we have to remember. It's not fame. Well, yeah, it's not fame that they're after. It's fortune that they're after. Yeah. They are merely feathering their own nests for afterwards because they're all right, Jack. It's not. They're not worried about themselves, and they don't give two shiny shites about anybody else either.
So do you think, Chris, that they're actually engaged in a little bit of disaster capitalism? Is that what we're talking about here?
I couldn't have been better myself, God.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much for that. Listen, we're going to move on now, and attitudes to social... sorry, I beg your pardon, let's read that again. Attitudes to violence against women are in the news today. Commenting on the findings of the Scottish Social Attitudes Survey in 2019, Attitudes to Violence Against Women in Scotland, the Equalities Minister Christina McKelvey said, "It's encouraging to see shifts in attitudes to violence against women over the past 5 years in Scotland, with notable declines in outdated gender stereotypes and damaging rape myths. However, some of the statistics are extremely concerning and show that although progress has been made, we must do more to challenge negative perceptions so that we can ultimately eradicate violence against women and girls from our society." While the majority of people agree that sexual violence and domestic abuse are seriously wrong, they're less likely to say the same of verbal domestic abuse or controlling behaviour. People continue to see rape within marriage as less wrong or harmful than rape by a stranger. And sadly, around 1/3 also continue to believe that a woman is at least partly to blame for being raped if she is wearing revealing clothing or is very drunk. As a part of our Equally Safe strategy through our work in schools, colleges, universities and local communities, we've continued to challenge existing attitudes that underpin gender-based violence. This week we launch our £13 million Delivering Equally Safe Fund, which will provide support for projects and services tackling violence against women and girls. The funding will help drive collaboration and innovation towards challenging outdated attitudes and stereotypes, staging early interventions that maximise the safety and well-being of women, children and young people, holding perpetrators to account for their behaviour and choices, and advancing women's equality. This is a very important topic, Chris, and it's been much in the news recently that people's attitudes to violence against women need to change. Are they changing fast enough? It appears from this report that there are some stubborn sectors of Scottish society which haven't changed some of their opinions.
Well, I mean, it's a highly emotive subject. And I don't think that neither myself nor you, Gordon, are best placed to actually discuss it. You know, I can only limit myself to the fact that any extra funding that will go towards the aid of such women that you know have suffered abuse at the hands of the partner or anyone else with regards to sexuality and stuff like that. You know, it has to be welcomed. Speaking on my own sort of like, you know, for me, you cited generational issues there. Well, you know, I was my father brought me up to basically understand that you know thing that no man could ever lift his hand to a woman, and any man that does is not a man. And I can't add to that because it is so eloquent. You know, and as I say, I'm not really, you know, being male. I don't think you know I'm best placed to discuss this. But
Chris, what did you think of the part of the story where the report revealed that about 1/3 of people who responded seem to view rape within marriage differently from what we might call stranger rape? Did that shock you? It certainly shocked me.
Well, again, I'm getting into an uncomfortable situation here, Gordon, because you know my own personal life, so I really wouldn't want to comment on that any
That's all right,
further.
Chris. You don't have to comment on anything like that. I just was trying to feel how you reacted to it when it was revealed. Anyway, we need to move along, Chris. So to our next story now, and the existing hosts of short-term lets will have until April 2023 to apply for a new licence under Scottish Government plans for regulation. The move will give them more time to prepare for the legislation coming into effect. A report into the consultation of the proposals, which received more than 1,000 responses, was published today, and secondary legislation will be laid at the Scottish Parliament later this month. If approved by Parliament, the licensing scheme will come into force on the 1st of April 2021, but local authorities will have until April the 1st, 2022 to establish a scheme in their area and to open it to receive applications, with existing hosts having until April 2023 to apply. Now, we've talked, Chris, many times about people who live in rented properties and the fact that the market in private rentals was largely unregulated. How important is it, do you think, for the Scottish Government to bring some measure of control to the rental sector?
I think it's vitally important, Gordon, because you know not only do we see the rental market running away with private owners and stuff like that, but it's now lended itself again into the birth of Airbnb and stuff like that. And it marginalises not only students, but it also marginalises a section of the community who, for one reason or another, and I can speak from experience here, you know, who are maybe on their own, have got a bad credit history, you know, because of left a marriage or something like that, and all of this, and they can't get credit for you know houses that are priced out of the market. So you know the actual no, but what the point that I was trying to make is it's not just the securing the house, you know, for any length of time, whether it be on you know a 3-month let, a 6-month let, or a year let, but it's coming up with a deposit. It's also
Yeah.
coming up with possibly maybe, an awful lot of them ask for guarantors as well.
And there's also,
What we have what we have to find in Scotland is, a far more uh, equal way of securing private housing stock, rather than just allowing people, obviously benefit from, a
vulnerable
market that
people.
control.
Yep. A lot of the problems, I think, are stemming, Chris, from short-term lets such as Airbnb and holiday lets, where prices can rise according to the time of year as well, and there's not really any rent control over these properties.
Aye, no, there isn't any rent control, but the point that I'm making is still pertinent, is the fact that no matter what let you take, there is always a certain amount of deposit that you
Yeah.
need to put down before you sign on the dotted line. And some people, due to an adverse credit history, don't have that deposit.
Yeah, so obviously there needs to be some rules and regulations, Chris, I guess, to govern this kind of activity.
Has to be a level playing field, Gordon, and the SNP government need to work alongside the Greens in order to get the necessary rent controls in place before the
Well,
spiral out of control.
Well, this looks at least like a good start, Chris. Anyway, I'm going to move on to our next story, and that is emergency funding for sports. Now, a £55 million emergency sports funding package to tackle lost ticket revenue during the pandemic has just been announced today by the Sports Minister, Joe Fitzpatrick. The funding will comprise grants and low-interest loans, including £30 million for Scottish football at all levels of the game. Scottish rugby will benefit from £20 million, alongside funding for basketball, netball, motorsport, horse racing and ice hockey, including support for ice rinks that support Scotland's world-class curling programmes, as well as recreational and professional skating. The package comes in addition to the Sports Scotland £1.5 million COVID Recovery Support Fund. In partnership with the Scottish Government, the agency has also loosened the criteria for its £32 million of planned annual investment for the sports sector during the pandemic, allowing sports organisations to protect 1,600 jobs. So again, Chris, this is good news. Sounds like the Scottish Government doing the day job again.
Well, it is exactly that, Gordon. It is getting on with the day job. It's trying to protect every sector if they possibly can. And, again, we're just seeing the Scottish Government trying to spread itself as thinly as possible across all sectors
Yeah.
within the Scottish economy, because at the end of the day, football, basketball, ice hockey, rugby, you name it, all sports and stuff like that, they bring a revenue into Scotland's economy. It's just good to see that the Scottish Government helping them out.
Yeah.
Whereas when we look over the border, we don't see that being reciprocated by the UK government in some sectors.
So I understand, Chris, that Scottish football will benefit from £30 billion, but there's £30 million, I beg your pardon, but there's not the same kind of support being offered by the British government in England for some reason.
Not directly to clubs, no. And I'm trying to avoid making any jokes with regards to football, because my own club's not doing too clever at the moment.
Neil's not
But
impressed.
again, going back to the conversation that we had earlier about soft no voters, they really have to look at what the Scottish Government are able to do with one hand tied behind our back. Just think about what we could do if we had that hand free.
Yeah, if we had the powers to do everything that we wanted to do, Chris, it would be a better place, I think. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on now to Christmas. And of course, it's coming up to that time of year, isn't it, when we all like to go shopping. And there's been new advice given by the Scottish Government in light of COVID-19. on advice for safe shopping this Christmas. I'll just read out some of what the Business Minister, Jamie Hepburn, and the National Clinical Director, Jason Leach, have had to say. And they've shared tips for safe Christmas shopping as many high streets prepare to welcome back customers this weekend. 11 local authority areas will move from level 4 to level 3 restrictions tomorrow, Friday the 11th of December, with non-essential retail businesses able to reopen from 6 a.m. Mr Hepburn said, "We know that lots of people want to support local businesses this Christmas, especially as shops and hospitality businesses in many areas open their doors again. Not only will they be helping their high street at the end of a difficult year, but they'll also be reducing unnecessary travel, which can spread coronavirus. Between communities. The virus is the last gift anyone wants to receive this Christmas, so I'm encouraging everyone to follow our safe advice for shopping and travel to reduce the risk of infection." Now, also, the government goes on to say that it's also published guidance for retailers outlining their responsibilities for safe shopping and to remember the FACT guidance. That's face coverings in enclosed spaces, avoid crowded places, clean your hands and surfaces regularly, and 2-metre social distancing. And remember to self-isolate and book a test if you develop any symptoms. And that is almost all we have time for this evening, except to say that, as you may know, we are currently running a major crowdfunding effort at the moment. Broadcasting Scotland wants to be there through the major events of the coming year, and to do that we really need your help. So we have a short video coming up in which you can see exactly what Broadcasting Scotland does. Oh, I beg your pardon, I've just been told off the video at the end. But certainly, if you wish more programmes like this and others, and you want to see more professionals working in Broadcasting Scotland, please dig deep. And remember, you can give in any way you like. You can become a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, or you can give a single donation as you wish. It just remains for me to thank my guest, Chris McCusker, again for being my guest this evening. Thank you, Chris, and excellent answers as usual. And I'm afraid that's about it from Broadcasting Scotland's Scotland at 7 show this evening. And I look forward to seeing you again on Monday. Kenny will be back again tomorrow. That's it from Chris and I. Very good evening to you.
The Catalans, the Basques, the Galicians in the Basque.
An independent future for Scotland.
How quickly do you think a referendum can be arranged?
Best practice demands that it should be 6 months.
Just looking at the overall share numbers for Scotland at the moment, the SNP 46.4%.